You are now watching the official YouTube channel for the largest basketball manager game in the world. Join at BuzzerBeater.com if you think you can beat the buzzer.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Bubble's BuzzerBeater, the official BuzzerBeater YouTube channel. Today I wanted to discuss the newest BuzzerBeater feature that was added this season, and that is the auto bid feature. So most of you probably know that this was just added in a couple days ago, and if you don't know what exactly it is, we will cover that in this video. And the reason that this is called the auto bid Conundrum is because it's a little bit more of a polarizing implementation. I know there was a lot of pushback, both when the initial suggestion poll was listed as well as when it was officially added a couple days ago. So in this video, we will just break down the pros and cons of this, how it will adjust BuzzerBeater and the transfer list itself, because the transfer list really hasn't seen any substantial changes since season 1 when the game created. So the auto bid feature is something that is changing the game somewhat significantly. So main things that we're looking at is just what are the pros and cons of this implementation. And you can see in the news report right there if you wanted to read through that. Essentially, this auto bid feature is both for players and staff and is designed primarily to make it more convenient for people to be able to bid on staff members and players when they're not able to log onto the site. So in theory, at a very baseline level, it makes a lot of sense. Convenience is something that BuzzerBeater should value, and auto bid definitely does that. So we'll go through the pros and cons, and I also just wanted to start with some background information about where this was suggested, why it was suggested, and kind of how we got to this point. So some background information on the suggestion itself. On the auto bid system thread, which you can view in the suggestions forum on the BuzzerBeater website, we had Alonzo, the community manager, so CM Alonzo, mention a suggestion that had been suggested a couple times in the past, but this is the first official full-fledged out thought suggestion that BuzzerBeater was considering. And you can see the date. This was back over a year ago in February of 2023, and you can see the listing for it, or the reasoning for it here. But the main points is making it so that people can add a max bid but not have to place that max bid immediately like you would with no auto bid feature. And then in addition to this, Joe Maverick did a really good job of just mentioning how this works on Hat Trick. So Hat Trick is the soccer manager simulation game that I know a lot of people looked into or played at one point. I think BuzzerBeater is just a far superior game, so I'm not on Hat Trick anymore. I think I tried it for just a couple of seasons, but they are a site that did have auto bidding, and you can see the breakdown of how this would work. So you essentially place a max bid, and the system would automatically bid for you when needed. Always raising the bid with the lowest possible amount, so either 2% or 1,000, whichever is lower. So that's very similar to BuzzerBeater. And the difference between this suggestion or how it works on Hat Trick is for Hat Trick, it's set up where you can only have one active max bid at a time. And if your max bid has reached its max, it does not count as an auto bid anymore, and you can set another one. However, for BuzzerBeater, it's currently constructed where you can set as many auto bids, max bids as you want. So we'll also cover what that looks like and how that differs from the Hat Trick structure. And then most of you probably saw that if you were on that thread, I was one of the managers that pushed back a decent amount on this for various different reasons. I'd say the caveat up the very top was the initial concern about multi-account issues or site revenue issues. And, CM Alonzo as well as BB Justin indicated to me that this is a non-issue for them, so it's not something that they're too worried about. It's still something that I think we could see occasional problems with, but they've assured me that it's not going to be an issue, so I'm going to take their word for it. Other issues that I had with it was honestly, the biggest issue that I had with it that I'm still slightly concerned about is that auto-bid implementation promotes inactivity. So the main reason that I like a lot of the other features that were added within the last 10 to 15 seasons at BuzzerBeater since BB Justin became more involved is that a lot of the implementation included things that promoted activity. So promoted people to go onto the site. It promoted people to spend more time on the site itself or in the BuzzerBeater app. So this is like BuzzerBeater Madness, B3 predictions, game day prep, updated training features, scouting draft updates. All this promotes people spending more time on the site, not less. Autobid doesn't necessarily do this. So it's the balance between, okay, do we want convenience or do we want site action and more activity on the site? And I personally value activity and players being more active than not, more than that convenience. But with this feature being implemented, it's clear that they are leaning more towards the convenience aspect, which isn't right or wrong. It's just different view than what I have. I wouldn't say it's inherently bad, but it's something that just differs from my opinion. Other things that I had problems with was just that I think the transfer list structure and the way that the bidding system works is actually pretty fun. That's a little bit more of a polarizing take because I know some people don't like how the 3-minute recycle end time is set up, or how if there's a player ending at like 2 a.m, you either have to get up and bid manually on that player at 2 a.m, which not a lot of people are able to do, or if you're at work, there's just certain auction times that you might not be able to get to a player because of your specific schedule. On top of this, I think it's something where even though auctions are ending at 2 a.m. local time for some people, and it can be frustrating to not be able to win all actions, experienced managers can now spend, more money than they would be able to without the auto feature. And what I mean by that is the amount that a manager has in their account stays the exact same. However, if a manager knows that they're never overspending, so right now if you said, okay, well, the most I'm willing to spend on a player is $400,000, but you don't have to pay $400,000 right away. That's your max amount, so it's like, I'll pay that if I absolutely need to. However, with auto bid, you can now, without hesitation, bid $400K, and then it'll incrementally pull you up to that amount. So you could only end up paying $280K or $310K rather than $400K. Whereas before, it was, you can still pay that amount. That's the max that you set. You say, I'm comfortable paying $400K. You would just have to set that right away. So it wasn't impossible to win auctions before auto bid. Some managers said that this is still not convenient, so that's a big reason that it's created, but it is something that I don't think was necessarily a huge issue. I do agree that it probably levels out the playing field for all time zones and for different times of days that are more or less busy for transfer lists, so that's a benefit there. But that was just my initial thought when this was posted over a year ago. And then my other thing was just that there's a lot of other features that I'd rather see worked on first. And mentioning how the 3-minute timer was always something that I think is a bigger issue or more annoying than end time of an auction. It's the 3-minute reset every time that I always thought could be reduced. But those were my general ideas or feedback about the suggestion over a year ago. And that brings us to the results of that. So this lasted for a month for the poll, and then you can see the breakdown of 56.9% of users being in favor of it with how the thread was listed in a somewhat pro-favorable auto bid way. But 56.9% of users said, yes, this is something that I would want to see. And then 41.7% said, no, this isn't something that I would want. And 1.4% said other. I'll explain it on the comment. And there was a big thread just going through that if you wanted to read through differing opinions. But this is obviously somewhat of a polarizing thing, where only 57% of users who actually voted on this were in support of it. So why was this passed and who is it targeting then? If only 57% of users who voted said, yes, this is something that I definitely want, who is this targeting and why was it implemented? Quite simply, this is targeting the casual BuzzerBeater managers, which a lot of them are not voting on polls that are put into the forums. They're not managers that are typically visiting the forums or on Discord. So my comment when I saw that this was implemented a couple days ago was, it probably seems like it's more being negatively publicized by managers, or more managers saying that they're against it and why was this added, than what the overall true consensus is, because the top 20% of managers are the ones who are on Discord, who are in the forums, who are likely watching this YouTube video. And a lot of these managers are the ones that put more time into the game and likely have less of an issue with needing to get on at various times of the days to get a staff member or player. The 70% of overall managers in this game that are more casual, this is probably something that appeals to them more. So you can see my breakdown of, I think 70% of BuzzerBeater managers of the 14,000 some odd hundred users, I'd say 70% of them are considered like casual managers. Just like, we play BuzzerBeater, it's fun. I'm not like super gung-ho invested into it, but I play it, I enjoy the game. I'd say about 20% of BuzzerBeater managers are what I'd consider highly active, or like the diehards. Those are the ones that you see in Discord, you see active on this YouTube channel community, and you see in the forums all the time. And then you have like the 10% of BuzzerBeater managers that I consider inactive or nearly inactive, where it's just like either their account is holding on for dear life, but they're not logging in very much, or they're just logging in like once a week for like 15 minutes to keep their account active and maybe set a training. So what this breaks down to is essentially, well, even though 50 to 60% of like the highly active managers seem to be against this change or be against auto bid, we are the vast majority and honestly not the target audience for this implementation. The auto bid feature is targeted towards those 70% of managers of various degrees who are a little bit more casual and aren't as willing to get on at different times during the site to do those bids. And that's totally fair. It's just something that I thought made a lot more sense to break down in that way, because people have been mentioning to me, they're like, I can't believe this was implemented. It seems like a lot of people are against it. And I say, yes, a lot of the people that are making that public are. However, the other 70% of managers who are active on the site that are like the casual managers, a lot more of them are likely in support of this. So it's just the target audience is different than what people might be seeing right now on like Discord or on the site itself. And now we'll just go to, okay, it's been created. So now what? So essentially how this works is that managers can still bid a manual fixed amount through the bid button. So they didn't remove the bid option and replace it solely with auto bid. The manual bid option is still there if you want to go through that route. However, managers can also now set a maximum bid through the auto bid button. And then, as I mentioned before, this system will automatically bid the lowest amount necessary to lead the auction. So that's either 1,000 or 2% more than the previous bid. And then, as I mentioned, unlike Hat Trick, there is no max on how many auto bids you can set at one time. And then here's just an example for a player that I bid on. So you can see in the auction, it was a 11,000 bid. And then I auto bid 15,000. So this is a very like dumbed down, simple version of this. But the 15,000 in the parentheses next to the 12,000 bid, the 15,000 is indicating my max bid. So that's saying that if I get outbid, the bot is automatically going to bid again for me up to that $15,000 mark. And then you'll see that the auto bid button automatically also puts me up to 12,000. So it makes sure that I take the lead for the current auction. And then it also lists what my max bid is, or what my auto bid button entry was. And then once I get outbid to that point, so let's say someone bids 20,000, then my auto bid is no longer there because I wouldn't be leading the auction. And it essentially just goes away, where I'd either have to do another manual bid or another auto bid if I was interested in this player. And then other thing to note is that only you can see these auto bid features for your own team. So the parentheses 15,000. If I was another manager looking at this, other managers can't see that I've bid my max bid to 15,000. It would just show the current bid of 12,000. So it's not like someone can see that you're auto bidding $250,000 and they can outbid you that way. They'd have to actually go through that process of bidding up beyond your point before they notice like what your max bid was set at. And then bugs. I know there was a little bit of issues with bugs in the first 24 to 48 hours of the auto bid feature being added. It seems like all bugs and issues that were reported have since been resolved. So there might be a couple lingering or a couple that come up, but seems like the BBs have done a very good job of troubleshooting and getting a lot of those bugs fixed immediately. And now that the bugs are fixed, the auto bid should be fully functional on both the website as well as the BuzzerBeater app. And then I wanted to end this with just a general, like, what does this mean for BuzzerBeater? How does this change the game? How does this change the transfer list? Because the transfer list, as I mentioned, has been the same all the way since back season 1. So what does this mean for BuzzerBeater? The main thing is that it's focusing on more convenience but less activity for managers, and it's up to you to decide if that's something that you think is good or not. As I mentioned, I personally lean towards wanting managers to be more active, not less. So auto bid doesn't necessarily help with that, but it does make it more convenient for those users that can't be on the site during specific times of the day. It does lead to more fairness across time zones and auction end times. So specifically for auctions that are ending like in the United States versus auctions that are ending in like Europe, I know the time difference between the two is very brutal sometimes. And this does help make it more fair. If you do see a player that you really like that's ending like 4 a.m. local time for you, you can set up that auto bid feature now and not have to worry about like waking up early or just missing out on the player entirely. So that's pretty cool. No more transfer list steals for buyers who are more active. That is one of the biggest reasons that I know a lot of people had mentioned why they were against this in the first place, is because they got a lot of enjoyment out of saving money through finding deals on the transfer list. So whether that was the specific player or the specific auction end time, their ability to find steals on the market was something that a lot of people really liked. If they were a buyer looking for a player, that's going to be a lot harder to do now with the auto bid feature, because there's just not going to be as many steals. If you can auto bid and you don't have to be present at the auction when it's ending, there's going to be way less steals on the transfer list for people to make use of. And then other thing is no more selling players on the transfer list and not getting fair value. So that's good for sellers. So it essentially makes it a little bit worse for buyers who are trying to find good deals. But if you're selling a player, if you're putting a player on the transfer list, this is likely something that does help you out. No more selling players on transfer lists and not getting fair value. So essentially, since auto bid is now available, it's very less likely that you are going to get below what market value is for a player. If someone views your player and they say, I'm willing to spend this much, you're likely going to get that much for your player, because they can bid at any time on that player up to a certain amount, rather than before, when they might miss the auction entirely or not feel comfortable bidding their max amount immediately. And then the other thing that I would tie into this point is that there will also be less instances of sellers making more than fair value, since there will be fewer early auction overbids. So essentially, these are the times where if you were interested in a player, you're like, all right, this ends at 3 a.m. local time and I'm going to sleep, but I really want this player, you would essentially bid your maximum bid that you're willing to pay. So you'd essentially go, okay, it says the transfer price estimation's $400K to $600K, but I'm comfortable paying $700K, even though I don't know, what other people are going to bid. The current listing's just at $250K. I'm willing to bid $700K, so that's what I'm going to bid right now before I go to sleep. This isn't something that's going to happen anymore, where sellers get that benefit of an extra $50, $100K for an auction because someone's overbidding slightly to ensure that they're getting the player. So I'd say most situations it's better for managers who are selling players, but there are going to be a couple instances where maybe you make a little bit less money because you won't have those early auction overbids. There will also be less unwanted last-second bid wars, but at the same time, more betting against automated bots, which, the last-second bid wars are probably not very fun for people if you're trying to do something throughout the day. However, you're still going to be betting against automated bots a lot unless you're also setting up an auto bid feature for the same player. So pros and cons there once again. And then last thing is just teams with large amounts of money in the bank, so like 5 million plus. I know there's even some managers with like over 20 million in the bank. They can essentially win all at any cost auctions that they want. So if there's a player where they're like, I don't care how much this player goes for, I definitely want them, there's nothing stopping from that manager from winning that auction at this point. Because the time that the auction ending is no longer a factor. They don't have to be online for the auction end time at all. They can just auto bid. They could, in theory, auto bid 5 million. And instead of having to pay 5 million right off the bat, it would just go up incrementally where, okay, I paid 1.6 million, even though I listed it as going up to 5 million auto bid option. So it just ensures that they are not overpaying by a single penny, but they can win any auction that they want up to that point. So it does help out those teams that have a lot of money saved away, because for any situation where they're like, I'm comfortable spending any amount of money for this player, but I don't want to overpay, that allows them a route to do so without having to pay early and also not have to be on the site for it. So once again, that convenience versus, okay, how fair is it for newer managers with less money in the bank account versus the manager that has $5-10 million in the bank account that's saved up and now can win any auction that they want. So what are your thoughts on the new auto bid feature? Do you like it? Do you hate it? I'm curious to hear what your feedback is. If you have mixed reviews or just want to wait to see how it works, that's also totally fine. I'm leaning on the neutral / slightly negative side, but I'm more than willing to be proven wrong. And if it works as well as it does in Hat Trick, that can help retain users and make it feel like a feature that works really well and is convenient for managers while still allowing managers to be active, then I'm all for it. But yeah, give me your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I will be back with another video soon. I just wanted to get this one out because it's pretty timely, but I should have another one up here in the next 3 or 4 days for you. Thanks. Bye.